Hello, everyone. Welcome to our show where we're doing some election coverage here with the fabulous Dr. Lena Rodriguez, pardon me, and
Thank you so
me,
much.
Dave Johnson. All right. Um,
Yay!
Hooray. Oh, we want to announce before we get started, we are doing a big event in Hawaii. It's called Journey in Paradise. All right. We're both doing some great events. We're going to teach you lots of stuff along with Jen Bushman. There will be three people doing different classes with a wide range. If you want to take a look, just go to jenbushman.com and look under Hawaii Retreat. And you'll see tons of details about what we will be teaching, the events, the venue. It's going to be really beautiful. I hope you'll join us. Also, you'll walk away with some really great skills.
That's great. So Jen Bushman, that's Jen Bushman, and then follow the links to Hawaii. This has only
Mhm.
just happened very recently. We've decided to do this, so it is fully exciting. Yeah.
Okay. Um, so I just put a link to Jen Bushman. So you could see it. And hi, Erica. Hi, everyone. It's great to see everybody today on what could be the most consequential election of our time. It's just
Ah,
incredible how much is riding on all of this, how long
mm.
we have been anticipating it. This is going to be an exciting day. So, what do you think? We can talk about lots of stuff here, but I also think we should
Well,
talk
I
about.
just saw I've got my television on here, Dave. So
Oh,
out
yeah.
of the corner of my eye, I can see what's being said on various stations because the
Okay.
polls are still open.
Uh-huh.
But one of the exit polls for Dems, they were asked what was the most important issue for you to vote on, and 35% said the vote itself. Just
Right.
voting was the
Just
most important thing for the
just the
Dems.
ability to actually vote. Yes, that is
Yeah,
indeed significant.
you
Wow.
know?
What a
Yeah.
time we live in that we have to vote
Oh,
to keep being able to vote.
well, yes, use it or lose it, isn't it? And so the American system is very strange, I have to say, to those of us outside the
It is.
USA.
Uh-huh.
Australia votes on a Saturday, and it was made a Saturday deliberately back in the day. So
Mm.
working men, women didn't have the vote at that point, so
Oh, right.
working men could vote.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
Whereas Tuesday, everyone was working. I think that was a strange choice back in the
Well, it
day.
was it was a choice chosen by elites. Remember when America was first founded, most people could not vote, more than could vote in a British election, right?
Mm,
And there
mm,
isn't a House of Lords. But very well, not very few people, but maybe 40% of people could vote. Certainly, no minorities could vote and no women could vote. So that
mm.
was a large percentage of people that could not vote. And imagine if we hadn't given women the vote, there'd be no question about
Yes,
this
exactly. And
election.
imagine women losing that vote.
Right,
Ah,
right. Yeah,
because
that's pretty
that's
significant.
where Project 25 is going. Mm.
Yes. And yeah, and say goodbye to gay marriage because we'll know that that will be on the chopping block. There'll be not much to
Yes.
stop the Supreme Court from doing that or whatever atrocities they might do. The other thing that's really weird about the American system is the crazy electoral college, which really
Yeah.
did was created for the best of intentions. It was created to
Yes,
stop a
yes.
Trump, but it unfortunately was manipulated in 1885 on this very archaic mathematical system that no longer really reflects the population. So when people
Mm.
say, "Oh, the electoral college was created so that people living in the country could have an advantage," that is absolutely untrue. There are
Mm.
plenty of farms in California, right? It
Mm.
has nothing to do with that. It was just created at a time when the population was small. Democrats haven't had enough power since to undo that. Let's pray that they will,
Yeah.
either in a few months or potentially in a few years. because it does look
what's
like,
happened effectively
yeah,
is it's no longer one person, one vote.
oh, no,
It really
right.
isn't, you know. So
Mhm.
even apart from extra gerrymandering, the
Right.
system actually doesn't reflect bigger voting populations,
It
you know.
does not. And then there is the gerrymandering, which
Yeah.
shouldn't be legal. Obviously, you cannot create arbitrary lines of people. There's simple, math that we could do to divide that fairly and equally. But the Supreme Court shot that down, and the Supreme Court said you can give as much money as you want to a political candidate. No stopping you. You don't even have to be honest about it. You don't have to tell the truth about it. Which is why Elon Musk has this outrageous amount of power.
Yes. And I think people, well, after this election, we can't think past the, this at the
Yes.
moment.
Yeah.
But it's really disturbing to me everywhere. It's not just an American problem. This lobbying politicians used to be that. The definition of lobbying is pushing and trying to influence, right? And so
Right.
big companies and things used to everywhere put their money behind candidates. Okay, that's going on. But what's happened maybe in the last 15 or 20 years, no, lobbying now means I've bought your vote, Joe Smith
Yes.
from Arkansas.
Yeah.
I've bought
Mm.
your vote for my business. It's
Yes.
tipped over into another thing. It's not
Yes.
influence, it's out and out bribery now.
Yes. Yeah. It's a real social problem. And the only reason we see so many Republicans power is because of this. They've essentially received heaps of money from very vested interests. There was a case in, I think it was Texas, where some business person designed a pram and manufactured this pram, which was defective, and killed the babies. Okay. It literally killed these children.
I
And
know.
lobbied Texas so that would be a maximum on how much he would have to pay out. That is, rather than pay, $300,000 for killing your baby, he only had to pay $3,000 for killing your baby, and he
Oh,
just gave enough money to the politicians so that that happened, and these people had their children disappeared,
isn't that
died.
shocking?
And it's
Yeah.
shocking. There's like 100,000 stories like that of the man
Yes.
in Texas who went in for to have a leg removed, and they removed the wrong one. Well, in Texas, you can't sue for
I
malpractice.
know. Where a friend of mine, who shall remain nameless, but I know she's watching because she just texted me. She famously, if anything's being done in a hospital, she puts a post-it on the limb, make sure you take this aside.
Right arm off. The man, when he was told he could not sue, said, "I voted for that."
Yeah,
Right?
exactly.
People
And I
don't
think
realize.
so many people don't realize they just go for the neon issue, which is usually
Yes.
abortion or something, and they don't look at anything else their representatives are doing or voting down.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Well, I'll tell you, when I was in college working several jobs and, going to college and trying to graduate, I just didn't have time to go into every issue. I did not own a TV during my college years. I did not have time to watch it. So I
Mm.
think one thing that has systematically happened is, you have no insurance. You are put in a position of total desperation where you just don't have as much time as
Yeah,
you
you've
should.
got to just keep pedaling. Yeah.
And you don't have Tuesday off. I mean, it's outrageous that it would be on Tuesday. It is
Yeah.
completely unacceptable, totally outrageous.
Yeah.
By the way, someone complimented my country and western shirt. This may be the only one that I own, and I just wear it because, of course, it's red, white, and blue. I am, generally
Johnson in
not.
the saddle.
Yes, yes. I do love the shirt. It's way too small for me at this point, but I've kept it all of these years just so I can be on shows like this. And if I were voting, I would also wear it. If I were voting in the US, I did vote. Now, I want you guys to know that Lena called me a month and a half ago and said, "Dave, get that vote in. It's going to be a hassle if you don't do it today." Lena does that, by the way. She'll call me and tell me where I've lost my passport before I even ask her. And so,
We've got a question here from Alison.
yeah.
Thanks for being on today. How many Republicans do you think will be voting Democratic?
Okay.
So it's an interesting question, isn't it? Just in general. You know, what we can safely say, Alison, is more than ever before. I can tell you that much.
I got 15%. Yeah,
Oh,
that's
that's
just
interesting.
in my mind.
Which is a lot in the scheme of things.
A lot in the scheme of things. I think that I think this was a gift from the last month was a gift from the universe. All of us who are praying for the light have directed somehow Trump to make the most serious gaffes a person could possibly make in the last month. Now he's nothing but gaffes and he's still popular, but somehow he jumped the shark in the last month. Sure. So we'll let Lena communicate here. Look, something really did shift. I think many years ago, I said it's women who will take charge. It is women who will decide this election. I feel very much that that is indeed happening. So, go solidarity, you guys. It really does make a lot of difference that, women are talking, sticking together and voting in the right way. And no, you don't have to tell anyone how you voted. You can just go and vote and smile, just like the ad said. I would say, look, it is really important to vote today. If you haven't already, go do so. I'm pretty much figuring that if you're on this show, you did indeed vote. And my vote was, Lena, eventually counted. That is, I had to do it twice. It's really hard to vote from abroad because they have all these systems set up to prevent, some kind of criminality, which is fair. But 1 year they made it impossible. I couldn't vote. I tried and tried and tried. I sent in my faxes 3 times, but the system set up so that the soldiers that voted, soldiers in Australia,
yes,
they all went in one big packet. My vote was not included. So they have set it up. Every system that is set up has been set up to benefit Republicans. They used to have 3-week voting, 3 weeks voting beforehand in Texas. Now it's down to 2, supposedly to prevent fraud. But what it really means is working class people, people who have any kind of special needs, the elderly, have less time to vote. It was no way does that prevent any kind of fraud. If you go from 3 weeks to 2, there isn't any fraud for the most part in voting in the United States. But these systems have just been sort of seized. They've just sort of seized control. And I think one reason people support Harris is that she appears to be a person that isn't going to be tepid. We keep having these tepid Democrats. Oh, what if people don't like me? Oh, I shouldn't do that. It keep having these tepid people. She looks like a warrior. And every time I turn to her, it's like her with her sword in her hand. You realize just the fact that a woman would be president would be really significant for women in their power. But I think it's even more than that. I think people see a fighter in her.
She's just been a magician in this time, hasn't she?
Yes. Yeah. And I mean, look, over
because I was very ho-hum about her back in the day,
Yeah, you were. I remember you were ho-hum about her. I kind of think
really?
Vice presidents, they deliberately keep in the background, right? They don't want them running against you. So they always kind of downplay them and keep them in the background and don't say anything about them. So she wasn't really pre-disaster, as it were. We didn't go into in depth to find out if there were any problems with her. But she just came out. Nothing stuck to her. They tried to throw, you dated Willie Brown. People date. It's just a thing that people do. There's no law against dating Willie Brown. And, look at Trump's dates, if you really want to be offended,
Yes.
look at those dates. So nothing has really stuck to her. I'm shocked that it's as close as it is, but
Yep.
we know how things have gone. It's, the internet has changed everything. It has changed how we consume information. And in my opinion, it's meant that the most, shocking moment is what's on TV. Whatever's shocking is happening right now. There's no real in-depth
Yeah, and
understanding.
we've all been reduced to micro concentration. We just
Right,
can't handle much depth anymore. It's quite sad.
right, right. Yeah.
So let's talk about Joe Rogan endorsing
Oh God.
the Yeti. Can you believe it? Well, it's not surprising.
No, it
I
isn't.
mean, it's a meeting of the
Right,
Neanderthal minds, isn't it?
right,
You know,
right. Well, I guess, my just feeling when I check into Joe Rogan is my viewers are white aggrieved males. So I'm going to go with my viewers. And that's what makes me popular. I think that a lot of people have really sold out. As the Washington Post, Joe Rogan said he was supporting, but the Washington Post didn't. So the left just kind of chickened out. You just wonder maybe Jeff Bezos
totally.
is
And with the Washington Post, 200,000 people cancel their subscriptions.
Yep. I canceled
Good
it a
on
while
them.
ago. I canceled it a long time ago because I found them to be just untrue. Look, there's not a balanced argument here. It is pretty
And they
clear.
were the flagships, right? New
Mhm.
York Times and Washington Post, which broke the
Yeah.
Nixon drama.
Yeah.
And
Well,
here you have George
yeah.
Bezos going, oh no,
No,
oh,
yeah.
too much.
Well,
It's
one thing about
pathetic,
it
pathetic.
is. One thing about the Washington Post, though, it was run by that lady,
Yeah,
Margaret.
the wife of who then
Yeah.
became
Yeah.
famous
And
herself.
had her husband been alive, they would have made a little deal, right? But
Mm.
they threatened her and she became upset. Now, remember, the newspaper was her father's, not her husband's. So
Oh,
when he
sorry.
died, yeah. And he took control while he was alive. But when
Yeah.
he died, she was in control. And she's like, no way, I'm not making the deal. And they threatened her. They used some very vulgar terms when they threatened her. And so really you wonder if a man had been in charge of the Washington Post, maybe that whole story we've never heard of.
Isn't that an interesting thing to reflect on?
Yep.
You know?
Yeah. Rights of
It's
women
like,
make a big deal of difference. Joe
now we've
Rogan.
got another question here.
Sure.
How long before the makeup of the Supreme Court starts to change? What's your thoughts on that, Dave?
All right. Well, this is going to take a minute because it's complicated. How we're going to do that. I'm kind of interested to see maybe, first of all, how Kamala will do that. So Kamala, can you show me how Kamala Harris will change the Supreme Court? It's going to require radical action on her part. I see many moving parts. So she's going to have to do a lot of things to get that done. And realize if we don't get the Senate, not much. Well, we cannot solve it in that way. We still have the courts of law, and so let's ask. So, Spirit, can Kamala Harris use the legal system to change the Supreme Court? I get a yes. Okay, now my idea, this is my own opinion, she should immediately go in and say these people are guilty of election interference and other crimes, and just, take them off the Supreme Court and spend a couple of years fighting it in court. And by that, I mean, Clarence Thomas has committed many crimes. He should be
Well,
committed.
yeah, I don't think this is a hopeless case at all,
Me
in the
neither.
sense that most people would agree with term limits. This thing just staying there till you die in the Supreme Court, that would be one thing. But we forget Clarence Thomas and is it Samuel Alito, I think, who have been impeached by the Dems on paper, right? In other words, we have Sheldon Whitehouse to thank. He has spent the last 4 years following the money. They've actually got proof of their wrongdoing,
Yes.
allegedly, YouTube, allegedly. And they put this to Congress maybe 2 months ago or something, knowing that they don't hold the power of Congress, therefore it would sit there till after the election anyway, right? But the point is, when Kamala wins, oh my God, when her administration takes over, that's there ready to go. 2 impeached Supreme Court judges would need to be replaced.
Yes. Now that would.
But the problem is, like everything, the Dems need the lot today. They need everything. They need Congress and they need Senate.
Yeah, and that is that is the question that we're facing. When I tune into Kamala, I see it's almost like this building with metal parts, like she's building a roof, and it's like, well, let's put the angle here. Let's put the angle here. And this actually gives me a good feeling because it seems like we need to approach this in a more complex way. Even if we take the Senate, it'll be by a few, maybe 1 or 2, and you will have to convince all of them to be, to be on the money. There can't be a Joe Manchin, right? And it looks like we might get there, but have one independent. So it would be a tricky process. The legal process is somewhat simpler, because you can simply say, we're investigating you. During your investigation, you don't get to be a Supreme Court justice. You have to wait. And in the meantime, they can pass a bunch of laws and there will potentially be a better outcome. But I see her moving stuff around. And she keeps doing this. So the first try is not going to work. The first reworking isn't going to work. But she keeps going. And then the building kind of inverts. It's like a kind of inversion. So and it's not going to happen in the ways that we expect. It may be that Harris does not have enough power to pass money laws, depending on the Senate. And we'll get there. We'll get there in a moment, see how many people are going to win. But that may be true. But I think that she's going to find a better way, a very indirect way, perhaps, but a better way to do it. I do see her smiling. So let's ask then, how long, what's the time frame? I get 2 to 4 years. I think that some things are going to be able to be done in this session of Congress, the next 2 years. Then there'll be another election, which will change things, I think, for the better. It's difficult to predict 2 years out, but I think it will take some time.
Yeah, the problem is the world hasn't got a lazy 4 years, right?
Right.
So I can see how that would pan out for really fixing things up. But there's got to be, the first thing that is most important, who is she going to choose for AG? Because it needs to be an attorney general who is fearless, who is committed. In Australia, we would say who has the mongrel to take on these people. So her appointment is really important for the Supreme Court.
Yes, really, really important. And of course, in the Supreme Court, something could happen where somebody retires or passes away. So things will change eventually. Now, I just put up this question because several people have asked it. Do you see Trump fleeing the country to avoid jail? Now, I have seen this, but I don't think you have, Lena.
No, I never have, because my logic is he doesn't like anywhere else, right? It's fine going to Moscow to host Miss Universe, but it's not the same as living there. In the Middle East, he'd be don't forget, if he loses the business and everything else, he would be the poor guy in the Middle East, Right. He
That
can't
was
go to the Caribbean because he's been so foul about that. He's actually running out of options.
he is. Right. Well, the only thing to contradict it is I keep seeing him getting on this plane. And I just keep now, that's not weird. But if Spirit's showing me this, there's some reason why he is getting on a plane and it looks nefarious. And there seem to be Middle Eastern people around there. This is why I've come to some conclusion that he would flee. But this could, of course, be something else. I find with this work, often I'm just asking the wrong question, right?
Yeah.
So when I'm saying, will Trump debate Biden? I came up with a no. But I think what Universal is really trying to tell me is that
It would
Biden,
be no debate.
there would be no debate.
Yeah.
It would be Kamala, which indeed Trump did not show up for that second debate, right? Because he knew he would lose. So, I didn't have the wherewithal to ask the question about Kamala because I didn't think Kamala would be the candidate. So, one thing about the predicting business is sometimes you really just don't know enough to ask the right questions, right?
Yeah.
At least in today's debate, we did know enough to ask the right questions. We do know who the candidates are today.
So there's a question or a comment here about Musk, the $1 million giveaways. Did you catch up with the news yesterday when he had to speak to the judge? Okay. So there was a hearing. He failed to turn up. Second hearing, he turned up and he had to admit in the course of that procedure it was fake. It was real money, but they'd chosen 4 Musk employees earlier, or 17 of them, or however many, to actually receive it. There was no lottery, right? There was no barrel of names or anything like that.
Yeah.
So, but it's how they treat their workers.
Well, and isn't this fraud? This is
campaign workers.
Yeah.
Campaign workers in the last few weeks have been shunted into the back of vans with no seats, right? Imagine just crashing around in the back of vans, being taken to places, and then said, we'll only pay your motel bill if you meet your quota of door knocks, which is 1,000 for the week.
Wow.
This is how they treat people.
Wow. Well, and one hopes that this backfires and that those people are, not necessarily doing the work. And I've seen some evidence that they've got an app to pretend they knocked on 1,000 doors when they haven't, and that those people are falsely reporting Trump support. I believe that's true to a degree, but I don't know to what degree.
I just saw an interesting statistic here in Florida exit polls. They were asked, do you trust the election process here? And 81% said yes. That's important. Of course, it should be 100%. But I'm quite pleased with that, because if it was 50-50, it means they're going to fight. So 81 is quite a clear confidence factor, I think.
I believe you're right. Yeah. I think that's true. And of those 20%, some of them might be going the other way, thinking, well, Trump will try to steal it. So they may have.
I'm in that camp. Of course he will.
Oh, yeah,
he'll announce later tonight or in the morning that he's won regardless. Yeah.
Right. He's already made that clear. And he did the last time around with no consequence. So why wouldn't he do it again? It's a gambler's life that we are leading. A gambler is really a person who is placing everything on the line for one bet. It's like, roulette, black 22. They will put their money there, and all of us are living the consequences of this sort of gambling behavior. And the fact that Trump has never really had to pay the consequences. I mean,
and that's why the world is in this crisis now,
right?
Because the DOJ failed to meet the moment after January 6th.
Yes, the DOJ and others really didn't do their job. I mean, I'm of the opinion that the minute you found these documents in Mar-a-Lago's bathroom, you should immediately have taken Trump into custody. We were all in danger. We have all been endangered because he did that. The DOJ could simply have arrested him. And I think that they should have, right?
Yeah,
But
if they needed to convene a special court, the best legal brains in the country, within 6 weeks of the insurrection and have it in process. But so there's been no consequence for these people. With the documents, I think he should have been asked to return them, just as Biden and Pence were. And then when he did his dance, I don't have to, they're mine. That was the point at which he should have been arrested.
Exactly. And if we did that, we wouldn't have the chance to return the documents we had stolen. We'd be in jail and we wouldn't get a trial necessarily.
But I could even live with giving them a chance to do that.
Sure. Yes.
But after that, no.
Mm-hmm. Yes, right.
There's a question in the comments here. Do you see any surprises in the election, as in something like a non-swing state flipping?
Texas. I'm quite surprised, but I get the first word that came to my mind was Texas. I think Texas is going to surprise us. I don't know if it's Ted Cruz or the presidential election, but like when I tune in, I see people with non-Anglo origin, right? And they are stepping up. I think Trump's comments about Puerto Rico were so shocking that they really changed some minds. It was a gift. And interesting that it came out of the comedian's mouth.
Yes.
Right? So that came out of Trump's mouth, would have explained it away. But somehow a really lousy comedian, somehow he
in New York, were they mad?
Yeah, were they crazy? I think they're so high on their own fire. They're a bunch of guys sitting around the room and smoking cigars and passing, lousy jokes and, disgusting jokes. They start to think that they are funny because the people that are laughing are just like them. So I think that, again, that's sort of revenge of spirit. You put people in such a space that everybody reflects back to them bad character, and they go out and think that that represents everyone, and it isn't.
And this was another statistic coming up too. People were asked, what are you voting for? In the sense, 80% said, I'm voting for my candidate, and 18% said, I'm voting against the opposition. Did you see the distinction?
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Some people really are voting against. As my friend said, if you've really got a problem with Democrats, just don't vote. If you can't bring yourself to vote for Harris, just don't vote. Just don't vote for Trump.
Yeah, just don't feed the beast.
Maybe just, make that your protest vote. Now, are you ready? Are you able to pull some cards?
I haven't even got my cards. I'm here to have the conversation.
Okay. All right. No problem. All right. I was wondering if we're going to do that or not. But I'll just tell you again, what people are asking questions like about Iowa. Let's see. Someone asked about Iowa and whether, because Iowa turned out to be a big fat shock, right? Iowa is as Republican as you get, but they actually had, and usually it's Trump +8. And in the most recent Iowa poll, I forget the lady's name who does it. In that poll, she had Kamala up 4. That is a 12-point difference, and it's shocking in Iowa. It's just shocking. And the theory, of course, is that older women vote, and older women don't like a vulgarian. I mean, whatever the issues are, they do not like a vulgar man. And so those women have gone out and surprised probably everyone, and maybe their spouses don't know, and voted Harris. This is, of course, just in a poll. So polls can always be wrong because they're anticipating who and how they will vote, right? So
Yeah.
it's shocking.
Yeah. It's now we wanted to ask viewers too, how are votes counted in your state? In
Yeah.
the sense, particularly with absentee votes, because there was a banner headline on CNN or something saying at 8 p.m. EST, the early votes that have been counted will be released. But that won't
Mm,
be the same in all states. So if you
it
can let
won't.
us know, you know.
Yeah, let us know in your state, because last time around, of course, Lena and I were on pins and needles waiting for the results as we went to bed. It did look like, we anticipated a Biden win, but the numbers were for Trump because
Yeah.
the Republicans made sure that the mail-ins were counted after the regular votes.
Right.
And so that's the way it looked, which planted the seeds of the insurrection which followed. So it may be that in some states that's still the case. It may be that when we go back to bed tonight, we won't have an accurate count. So if you know, it looks like Sybil is going to let us know. So Colorado, right, which is of course not a Republican state, the ballots are counted as soon as they're received, which means they would
Oh,
have already counted early votes,
they would
right?
have their tallies. In
Uh,
Florida, Jocelyn says early voting will be counted first. So they've got them, but they haven't actually counted them yet. And the same
uh,
in Pennsylvania, 900,000 ballots have been mailed in, but they only start counting them today.
uh-huh, right.
So it's
So
interesting because, as I often say, the US is 50 little countries, you know.
yes, yes, that's really true. Right. It's funny because you're Australian, but that's something I often say when people ask me, why do Americans? I'm like, oh, no, 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 no. I'm from California. And now when people ask me where I'm from, I say California. I don't say the United States. And I always follow up with a joke like, hey, it's just if you say you're American, people think you're crazy these days. So
Yes.
you gotta say something more. Here's Colleen. She says, don't expect the result from Pennsylvania tonight. State law prevents them from even starting to count the mail-ins until today. So
Mm,
Pennsylvania's a big one. All right. There are some people who see Kamala winning Pennsylvania. And if she were to win Pennsylvania and Texas, it's pretty much game over because they have so many electoral votes that the other swing states will be less important. I'm not sure if they will be unimportant, but it is rather ironic. Texas and Pennsylvania are not historically liberal. If women really are going out and voting for Harris, it'll be a major upset and it will bring a lot of peace to the United States because the numbers would be so large potentially that Trump couldn't make a case that he might have won. He will make a case, but it will be less likely that it will be supported by states, Republicans, because they're not going to get very far with it. So let's hope that
let's hope. Cherie says the Yeti was served with a summons today at Mar-a-Lago, perfect timing, for the lawsuit by the Central Park Five for defamation. Because he hounded them for years. Remember, he took out the full page of the New York Times condemning them and all. Never backpedaled, never apologized because he never does. Good on them. And they're now referred to, I think, as the exonerated five.
The exonerated five. Yeah, I remember that. Now, it's amazing no one ever calls them on that. It's amazing that
well, they are now. It's a it's a lawsuit
Right,
now.
right.
But I think
Yeah.
that would be a civil suit, meaning no jail, but it's still important symbolically.
Uh-huh.
You know.
Right. I'm just pointing here what Rose Blue says. The DOJ is here in Texas monitoring the elections. Well, thank God. I know that they were trying to prevent monitors in some places from the feds, but this is how the feds are supposed to work. They're supposed to go and monitor elections. That seems sketchy. So it does show us there, there's something, they're doing something, right? These DOJ are doing something. Maybe it's not what we would like them to do, but they are doing something. And I know they've pinpointed a couple of things, but look, I don't understand how a judge could allow, Elon Musk to go and say, yeah, this is a sweepstakes, and when it isn't. I mean,
well, he hasn't got away with that yet. I mean, what are they going to do? Are they going to find the wealthiest man in the world? It has to be more than that.
right.
But what's more disturbing to me is the state of America is now so dependent on Musk in terms of satellite linkage. That should not be in private hands. This is my problem with
Yes.
public-private partnerships, because
Yes.
the public part of it is spending your tax dollars paying some private entity to do the job the government used to do anyway. In other words, it doesn't save the government any money, it doesn't save your tax dollars. They're still spent, but the profits are private. We've got to
Yes.
stop doing these public-private partnerships like this. It's just
Well,
a game, a nasty game.
Well, there are people on one side who would argue that when you have a profit motive, you are more efficient, you are more effective, and you spend.
Oh, that was always the argument. Because it assumes the capitalist is in a vacuum and will just do what's best for the economy. There's no moral influence. And now, after 50 years of that, whatever it is since Reagan, at least 40, letting the market rule has led to us to the brink of climate disaster.
Yes.
It's brought us to our knees in terms of corporations owning the media. No matter where you look, we are seeing the adverse consequences of just let the business world rule. Right.
Well, also, the government doesn't make a profit, right? So the business world is going to make a profit, and it's going to be at least 10%. So add that on to your costs. It's a 10% cost. I mean, the war in Iraq was no bargain. It wasn't like they found some great cost-cutting devices to have, slightly cheaper tanks, right? They did the opposite. It was cost plus. So they just
it's public money, which in that case went to Halliburton. Hello, Dick Cheney. At least she's trying to work off her karma from Dad. She has, she's done her best in this recent time, but she directed Venom. There was an announcement here from the district attorney in Philadelphia talking to people who are threatening to upset the physical voting process. And he said, if you come here and do that, just wait and see. So he's issued a threat back to anyone potentially trying to intimidate voters. Has anyone in their districts found any signs of direct intimidation? Can I throw that out to the viewers, please?
Sure. Yeah, let us know in your comments. In the meantime, I'm going to go to Santa.
Yeah, that's so true.
Rumored to be in communication with U.S. enemies, and he's in charge of the Starlink satellites. Yeah.
It's outrageous. It's
totally
like it's just another business deal. And yet, as I said, millions and billions of public money that go to the Pentagon, hundreds of millions to defend America, and then you let this guy just have it all on a plate.
Right.
It's insane.
It's insane. And he's insane. It's another crazy person we're supposed to let rule our future. It's like, Mussolini now has the command of American, interlink forces. I'm just going to sort of do my own check-in here about Musk.
Yeah, do that.
Very much Russian. I'm not so sure about China. I think there's some tepid connections to China, but definitely Musk is in connection. He is talking to Putin. In a cagey fashion, he is. Um, there are sort of chunks of messages apparently that are going back and forth. Yeah, and you're right, Becco. Money needs to stay out of politics. I am 100. Since birth, I have believed in this. I remember being a child arguing with my parents and saying, "No, this is not right." Money and politics should never mix. If we're a democratic society,
Yeah, well, if I had my way, I would say to each party, you have 20 million or name a figure. You've
right.
both been given this, do what you will with it. That's it. No more extra money.
Yeah. Well, I think that how about we set a standard where everybody can give $20 to a candidate, no more. And that's every individual, not a corporation, not any kind of business. Only individuals could donate. That way
No, I don't think people should be financially inducing their representation. Even for $20. Even for $20, because that means someone else can put up $1,000 and just put names on it and send it off, and it's not going to be picked up in the system properly.
Well, it was. Historically, they did set some kind of limits, and they were able, I believe Tip O'Neill had to resign because he did something funky with that stuff. But, back in the days when people resigned, when they were found convicting crimes, he did resign. So there was some control over it. But the bottom line is there is no reason why they need to spend that kind of money on their election. They could go out and just debate. And I think if I were in Kamala Harris's shoes, that's the first thing I would do. I would say, you have to debate. You have to debate on a regular basis and give people the chance to ask their leaders questions. And that should be your advertising right there, is your answers to the questions on policy. The fact that we just have flashes of information, it's not teaching us much. There's
exactly like a series of town halls with both sides represented.
We used to be able
to. Jenny in the comments says Abbott, who's in Texas, has just passed an executive order, meaning not voted on, that you now have to show you're a citizen before you receive treatment. I presume she means medical treatment.
Wow.
Proof of citizenship. So he just slipped that in today.
Wow.
Oh, and B and C says we give and give and give, and that money should go to build houses for the homeless.
Yeah, it's true. It's a fine point. I believe that if the right people were in charge, that we would be building houses for the homeless because it's in our interest to do so. Today, from somebody who lived in San Francisco for most of his life, when I was a child and visiting, there were no homeless people. Post Reagan, there were, because Reagan just closed the psychological clinics and just put the schizophrenics into
he closed down all the cheap boarding houses in the city. That's exactly what Thatcher did, because they were a tag team, UK and US.
Right.
And at the same time, a lot of work had been done by advocates because mental health facilities, which were basically asylums for the insane back in the day, the language was so crude and cruel and awful.
Right.
And so well-intentioned advocates were saying many people are fine. They're not a danger to anyone. They should be allowed back in the community. So that was one thing that happened. And I applaud that. The problem was the political system and local governments didn't make any accommodation for that. Right. So people were turned out of those sort of long-term institutions with no skills, with no money, and just parked on the side of the road. And that was the beginning. Now there's many factors adding to homelessness.
Before I get to this question, I just have to say, as an Australian citizen, I got my Australian Medicare card a couple of weeks ago. I had my appendix out. Guess how much it costs? Nothing. That is, I paid for Uber home. That's all I paid. At some point, they came to me and said, look, if you treat it, there's a 40% chance that you could keep your appendix, but you might wind up having to come here with this same extraordinary pain again. If I'd been living in the United States and that was a cheaper option, I might not have had a choice. It would be like
Yeah.
pay 20,000 and hope you get better, or pay 50,000 and really
Yeah.
get better and be in debt for the rest of your life. That's the life that I led when I lived in the US. They just, I had insurance, but there was a $6,000 deductible. I broke my finger.
Yes.
It cost $7,000.
Yes. Yes.
So
Yes.
I paid anyway, even with the insurance, which wasn't cheap. So there's just, this whole idea that, capitalism is perfect. It doesn't, like any system, it has its imperfections. And I'll tell you also, whenever I say this, people in Australia are always like, no, I saw a homeless person. I'm like, no, you don't understand. I'm not talking about one tent in the park. I'm talking about a park of tents. That is what California looks like now. And so much of it. And it's easy to blame these people. It's easy to blame California as if it was California's fault. 20% of these guys are veterans. They're veterans from the
That's true. A
war.
very high percentage of veterans. The other thing
Veterans.
is that I think California has suffered from is if you're homeless in a cold state,
Yeah.
you would, beg, borrow, or steal your Greyhound bus ticket to a warmer climate to be homeless, not because you want to bask under the palm trees, but to live through the winter.
Just to survive. And you can't do that in Vegas. It's too hot. You'll literally cook alive. So
right. So it's one extreme to the other. So a lot end up in it. But also studies have been done by housing the homeless. It actually saves money in terms of, professional interventions at law and order level, health crises, everything else. But Americans struggle with that altruistic thing of helping those who are less fortunate.
Yes.
There's this Christian overlay, but it's not the sort of Christian that says, turn the other cheek or welcome the stranger or help the poor. It's this bizarre prosperity gospel.
It is. And it comes right from the Puritans. The Puritans believed you were born bad.
Absolutely.
And you had to beat someone into goodness. The Puritans also believed that if you were making money, that's because God was shining down upon you. So money equaled good morality. And, I don't know if those people would have survived those winters with that kind of intent. They did in other places. Jamestown preceded them and they survived and they were not Puritans. But there's something about that psychological drive. So much so that if you go to Boston, you don't go home before 7 or you lose your job. It's not really right. I'm going to go to Be Kind.
Yeah.
First of all, love the name Be Kind. I kind of think
Isn't
I
it
should
great?
just as a message. Be kind. Will we get to the Truth in Journalism Act again? Yeah. Now, I know that there is a fairness doctrine. I don't know what that Journalism Act is, but let me just see what I get when I see that. Well, I see it, Kamala, this time she's just sort of pulling a lot of layers, pulling a lot of levers. There will be levers that need to be pushed, but it's not as hard as the Supreme Court. Really, you could simply bring back something like this act. You could bring back the Fairness Act, and it would go a long way. I tend to think that whether it takes 1 year or 20 years, we are going to have to regulate information more than we did. Because, look at the disinformation that was spread and what happened January 6th. Also, many people died because of the COVID crisis, and they shouldn't have died. They just believed the misinformation they received. If there's a direct connection, you can sue someone, but because it was so indirect, those people are not responsible for the disinformation. So I'm getting that it will. The steps will be somewhat incremental in the beginning. I don't think we'll get the full, the real deal and what we really need for some time. And I'm going to say maybe even 20 years it'll take to really get us back to, a realistic understanding of information.
I'm not sure we can put the genie back in the bottle with
Yeah.
the internet, but that's not to say there shouldn't be some regulation. So, for example, particularly mainstream, I mean, it doesn't matter what you or I say or something in terms of we're a small cog in the wheel, but if you are, particularly on television or podcasts or something with serious numbers, a rating system where your sources are listed at somewhere on a banner and they are rated by an independent body and for stuff. So in other words, you could still watch rubbish, but they would be getting 1 star and
But
or something like that.
that would work in one direction.
Um,
Some people have been taken to task for those things. Who's the shock radio guy? That's just a really horrible shock
which
radio guy.
one?
I know the big one,
Howard
the guy
Stern?
that Trump, no, the guy that Trump gave a medal to, who was the guy who said, I don't know why his name's slipping my mind, but he's the fellow who said that it was all a setup when those kids got shot at the school.
Oh, yeah, Alex Jones. Alex
Jones.
Jones.
He did.
Embodiment of evil.
The laws do
Telling
exist.
parents their children
Yeah.
weren't dead.
And those parents had to were inundated with vicious and horrible phone calls. Their families were threatened. One of the parents was walking down the street. Somebody slapped him across the face. Imagine losing your child, and so that Alex Jones can be famous and make money, you're treated in that way. Having lost your kid, there were protesters at their grave sites. It's quite sickening, the level of cruelty. I think that's the thing that I mourn more than anything else, is just the lack of empathy. I could understand why you would not want, hordes of people coming from, South America and Mexico. Although I'll point out that we created those governments. We are now reaping the consequences of our meddling in South America. I can understand why you don't want to take all those people, but can you have empathy for them? And that is the first question that I would ask. Okay, yeah, maybe those rules are, maybe we need to change things, but that could be you. You could be the unfortunate kid that's born in South America and both of your parents are killed and you're 3 years old and you have to walk across 3 countries. As far as I'm concerned, that is a hero. And we should greet such people with open arms. I feel like we could control these situations better. But, all the guns that the drug dealers are using are American guns. And it's very easy for them to get them because of American law. So we are supporting those. We are to some degree causing that to happen. And I don't think we can meddle again. That's not the answer. But as a human being, as a person who believes in humanity, where's your soul gone? That you would no longer, you would dismiss those people as just a statistic. How could you hear a kid cry being separated from its mother and not be moved by that? Even if you believe the policies are correct.
Yes, it's almost not about that. It's about
your soul,
your human response, your human to human response.
So
update from Linda Muller here.
Okay.
Bomb scares in Georgia. There's been several this morning. The Attorney General, Raffensperger, we famously remember him from the phone call of find me 11,700 votes. He said they were from Russia. Thanks, Elon.
Wow. Thanks. Sorry, what came from Russia?
The bomb scares that have been going today in Georgia at polling stations.
Wow. Okay. So Nanette just pointed out an anecdote here. There's a guy picking up Harris signs out of people's yards, 72. Someone saw him and chased him and he tried to run them over with his car. You notice all these scenes of violence, they're always Republicans. The people who attempted to assassinate Trump, they're all Republican fans. They were all white males with guns. I think that is extremely telling of who is willing to commit violence. So
Well, we've
Okay.
got some results coming through here.
Yeah.
Kentucky, this is very, very early. Oh no, they're not. Sorry, they were from 2016. I was getting
Okay.
excited there for a minute.
We're going to go to here. Robin E. has said there's been 30 bomb scares nationwide. Right
Yeah,
now,
but mainly concentrated in Georgia.
when in the history of the United States have we had bomb scares on election day to the total of 30? It just,
It's the amping up and ramping up of appalling macho behavior.
Yes.
Terrorizing people at the polling stations. It's got to the stage, actually, where there needs to be international supervision of American elections.
Yeah.
You know,
Yes.
it's
It's
got
going to.
that bad.
Yeah. Oh, and I'm sorry. Manny J pointed out that it was Rush Limbaugh who got the Medal of Freedom from Trump.
Oh, okay.
Rush Limbaugh. So it's not the same person.
Who's equally horrendous. Yes.
Yeah, and he didn't pay any consequences. It's hard to get anywhere with it, and it's only civil. You notice they didn't put him in jail, Alex Jones. So there is not much impetus to do the right thing. If Joe Rogan is, putting out disinformation that kills people, there isn't really a consequence, right? A doctor couldn't do that. Other people can't do that. But because he is in the media, he is allowed to do that because we suppose people have the responsibility to check the information out and see if it's correct or not. It really is very much that some Americans and some foreign people have taken advantage of the freedom of speech in the United States and warped it so that much of it is completely unreal. It's really a terrible shame. But some close in the East minute in the East Coast in 5 minutes. Send positive average. I'm down with Sharon. Okay, it does make a little bit of difference, in my opinion, maybe more than a little, if we let the universe know we are ready for a better time, a better society, and more, at least the same freedoms that we have endured before. So don't hesitate to picture a positive outcome. And when you're doing that, don't go to any hatred. You don't need to picture Trump going to jail. Okay, that's going to happen. But picture the positive outcome. Picture a peaceful America, a peaceful world where these issues are resolved. I do feel that makes a difference. And there are some people who have been doing that very actively. And I just think that that's great. Deborah, sorry, I'm forgetting Deborah's last name, but she did the pray-a-thon day before yesterday. And those efforts are really important. Deborah Lupien, sorry, she does the voice of the Akashic Records. And she really did a fine job the other day of getting people online, envisioning a better future. It really helps. Give it a try.
And Rose Blue says, an 18-year-old, I remember this was yesterday or the day before, an 18-year-old wielding a machete who threatened elderly poll workers. Mm-hmm. Now, he's been charged with 3 felony counts and he's in jail. Right. But if it's Alex Jones or Musk or anything doing it on a large scale, nothing happens. The 18-year-old probably with mental health issues and should have been arrested. I'm not saying
yes.
But it's that thing again, isn't it? The boots and the suits.
Yeah. And what can motivate a young person? Because I think he was, maybe 21 or something.
18.
Pretty young.
18.
Oh, God. I mean, it's pretty young. But what could motivate an 8-year-old to wield a machete at people voting? What kind of environment is this person living in where they think that is acceptable? And we've seen a real change in their culture to behaviors that were never acceptable before, like constantly lying, have become acceptable. Vera Reiki has just pointed out that Harris convinced some people just by speaking to them. Good for her. I think she convinced a lot of people by speaking to them and not at them
Mhm.
or even with them. And that is something Trump never ever did. Not once. Not once did he make any kind of concession. Not once did he actually talk to people. Let's see.
Aspie says, maybe the universe is teaching me patience. I'm a slow learner in that area. That's the thing, isn't it? We want instant gratification in all areas of our lives, including political. But it's what, hopefully, the big message in this is that Americans need to engage in their everyday processes politically at local level or whatever, because you need to be part of the good change you want to see. We tend to all of us tend to leave it to someone else and then sit back and go, aren't they terrible? Right? So that means, getting voted onto school boards, on municipal levels, all sorts of stuff needs to happen to reintroduce compassion to the conversation.
Yes. The school board.
Be the example.
The school board who cares about these things. I thought this was really interesting from Raleigh. She's mentioning that her ancestors came over on the Mayflower, and those people. Me, I'm the descendant of immigrants. I don't have a drop of Native American blood. All of my ancestors were immigrants to that country, and sadly moved westward as the land was stolen to the Native Americans. Right now, you have ancestors that were Mayflower people too, though, don't you, Lena?
Yes, isn't that interesting? Because my family's split in two, basically. We've got the blue bloods and the Irish peasant stock. Right? Nothing in the middle in my family. But yeah. On the blue side, Mayflowers, Hannah Winslow and Edward Winslow. And my niece found that out a few years ago. We were all amazed. We had no idea. And she thought she'd found them, and she approached the Mayflower Association, and they send you a letter going, thanks for getting in touch. We'll get back to you, and then nothing happens for us. They went, oh my God, yes. They were. Wow.
Yeah. I believe I have one ancestor who is on the Mayflower too. Some of my ancestors are Jamestown ancestors, so they came beforehand. But what's going on culturally in America, it's just, I find the people who are actually more blue-blooded are actually usually liberal.
Yes,
they
more
are
generous. And apparently, Edward Henslow too, he wanted to broker deals with the Native Americans who were keeping them alive, just like the Thanksgiving story, right? But I'm actually really proud. Through that line, I'm a descendant of Anne Hutchinson. Anyone in the chat? Anne Hutchinson of Boston, Puritan, 1630 or something, when Boston was still tiny. And she had a radical idea. And that radical idea was, we shouldn't have to have reverends and ministers and priests. Everyone should exist in the grace of God, as she saw it as a religious woman, but that we can connect directly to God ourselves. See how radical that idea was.
Yeah.
So she was put on trial. She's lucky she didn't hang as a witch, actually. It's a miracle. But she was exiled. She was pregnant with her 16th child. They exiled her in winter, and she had to walk to what is now the Bronx.
Wow. Yeah.
So Anne Hutchinson.
Here's another funny thing about Anne Hutchinson. George Bush is her descendant, and Al Gore is her descendant.
Yeah.
Right?
I'm actually related to them because of that.
Yeah. Well, it tells you about American politics too. It's just a few people.
Maybe that's why I'm so invested as an Australian.
Yeah. Yeah, it's quite funny. Did you know that during W. Bush's tenure, there were 300 Bush family members in positions of political power? 300, right? I don't
Um,
even think I could find 300 members of my family in
no.
existence, right? So it's pretty shocking. Um, so what are you seeing? Are you seeing any results?
I'm not getting the juice yet. Let me just change
Well,
channel. Just letting everyone know we're on
mhm,
here for another 20 minutes. And then at 7 p.m., I think it's Chicago time, a lot of the readers are going on Jen Lynn's channel.
yeah.
And so through the night, we'll be on in different combinations, I'm sure, of
Mhm.
5 or 6 or something. Um, because we need the support as well of each other, you know,
Yes. Yeah.
in all
Please do
this.
go check it out. When we're done, we kind of coordinated this so that we could pass the torch from one group of people to the other.
Yes, yes.
Yeah. You know,
So,
Sharon is telling us
oh,
that.
thank you, Colleen. Per Wikipedia, Anne Hutchinson's descendants, wow, include Franklin D. Roosevelt, the Bushes, Stephen A. Douglas, the Romneys. I'm lucky I didn't end up as a Mormon housewife. Oh
Oh
my
my
God.
God. Well, I did put up that Kentucky protects Trump just to get that out of the way. We're not surprised here. You know, that is Trump country in some senses. It is the more rural places that go for him, but let's find something new to put up. Um, let's see
So
here.
final voting underway.
Uh-huh.
Final voting underway. Trump's got his nose in front, excuse me, but early days.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, just putting
I
up.
actually can't believe that will be a final result. I cannot believe every decent, sane, thinking, caring American hasn't made an effort to go and vote Kamala Walz. Speaking of Walz, let's talk about Tim Walz for a moment. Mm. So, what an extraordinary pick,
Yeah.
and how fabulous is that man?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Because I
He
see
just.
this whole thing as a battle between toxic masculinity,
Mhm.
represented by JD Vance and Trump and Joe Rogan and everyone, versus compassionate masculinity, which is where I
Well,
would like to think most men live.
yes. Yeah, and think about the personal power that he must have to be assertive and still a decent person, to be a
Yeah,
person
yeah.
who goes and speaks to people and finds solutions collectively. It is so much more, in my mind, masculine, if you want to call that masculinity. It is so much more true, I think, and emblematic of a well balanced and intelligent person that they're able to take in counter arguments. When have you ever seen Trump be able to do that? And when in the last 20 years have you seen any compromise out of the Republican Party? It's my way or the highway.
I blame Newt Gingrich. Okay.
Yes.
He was the one who dragged the tone of political discourse. We all used to get bored and roll our eyes and they'd waffle on
Right.
about issues and things. He was the one who started getting personal and ugly
Yes.
and just
Yes.
attacking the other person and all of that. So he warmed up the public for the Yeti to come later, you
Right.
know.
Well, and you also have Fox
Yeah.
News.
Hi to Jen Lynn.
Hey,
Thanks for
Jen.
popping in. We'll see you soon.
We'll be popping into your show, Jen. So Colleen says, make politics boring again. I wanted to just
Yeah.
talk to Escape. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that made up name correctly. I'm assuming that's not your born name. Fortunate Hispanic and Native American. And according to 45, I am an inferior. Go figure. Well, this is what I figure. It's disgusting. It is disgusting that
Yes.
anyone would ever make you
You
feel
should
that
feel
way.
that. Yes.
It is horrific to me as a white Anglo-Saxon Protestant person. I do not accept that anyone is superior or inferior. I don't care what your color or religion is. It's simply wrong that America has turned in this direction. And that's why I immediately was repulsed by 45. The first thing that he did was blame our social problems on these people coming over the border. If you live in California, the person that is washing your house, the person that is picking your food, the person that is doing labor are probably a illegal alien. And I know that from personal experience. If they were not there, their groceries would cost twice as much. So there's an economic reason why those people are there. It's just arbitrary that we've decided that all of the problems in our society are their fault. They're not. The fundamental problems we have in our society are not brought because of people coming into our country. The fundamental problems are the ones that Kamala needs to address, like unfairness in our democracy. So I just want to apologize, first of all, to you for that being said. It's completely wrong. And though I'm not a member of a minority group, I will represent that, people I know who are not minorities also agree that this is totally unacceptable. It's totally wrong. Look, I believe we were born in many lifetimes. So some lifetime I'm going to be a minority. I'm sure I've been minorities in other lifetimes. All those people who are persecuting minorities are going to have to come back again. And you can just imagine what border they're going to be born on the other side of.
Exactly. And maybe Trump is destined to reincarnate as an Hispanic woman with 5 children, queued up.
Right. Yeah. Or,
Kamala leading in Georgia. Yes. This is Douglas County. We've got to be careful because obviously certain counties are going to shift. But in Douglas County, she's got 65.9 to Trump's 33.9.
Wow.
But Rockdale, Georgia, she's 75, he's 24. Oh, my God. In the big tally so far, he's still ahead in terms of presidency. She'll catch up, though, I think, once these results get processed. So I just want to be clear, this is not the whole of Georgia. They're going county by county.
Right.
But that's a big gap.
Yeah.
75 to 24. Let's have a look at the other channel here.
I'm just putting up a couple of positive messages here. Nothing to do with skincare, everything to do with consciousness. The truth lover, you are so right. This is really, really well said. Somebody's commenting my shirt again.
I know you should wear it more often. Wash it by hand so you've got it forever.
Yeah.
Now, Rose Blue says Kamala means lotus, which is a great acronym, leader of the United States. You've got to love that.
Oh, yes. Wow. That's got to be a message, right? Okay. Yeah. That's just great. Yeah. So let's see. Do we have any other information? And if you guys do see some important information, don't hesitate to put it in the comments.
Yeah, put it in the chat.
As we're sort of multitasking here. Let's see. Can't make it your next vacation. Check the vibes.
What have we got here? From Hummingbird, she's thanking us. You and the rest of the reader communities have created a safety net for us. We are so pleased to be of service. I think I can safely speak for the readers. It's an absolute privilege to have done this work with you guys.
Yeah, and it's been beautiful to see. I got to tell you, working with I was not one of the very first readers. I was sort of, after, some readers had become well known, and there were a few of them that I watched. When I did get into this community, I have to say, all those defensive men, everybody's a woman, and they were all completely supportive of my work. I did not find anybody competing in any way. And I got to say, just I really appreciated that. It tells me a good deal about the sincerity of the group, that they're not
Yes.
just out for fame. They really were out, and we really are out to support people, to create a network where at least we could all be in this together and
Yeah.
share.
Share the pain and share the stress for sure.
Mhm. And I do believe that it shifted the energy too, because, and you're in a situation where you can't change things politically, you can change things personally. And I think a lot of people were inspired to move into spirituality that they didn't know they have. I have so many clients that call me and say,
Yeah.
last year, all of a sudden, I started getting these messages. What's going on? It's because we really did, I think, have a choice. I think there was a question of where we were going to go in consciousness. And I'm really glad to say that in opposition, a lot of people really chose a new path, those intuitive gifts that often women have better than men. That was the path that we have chosen. And I'm happy to have been a part of this divine feminine change. It was and is really empowering. Whatever happens in the election or not, notice that we have all evolved and changed. We're going in the right direction. Somebody's pointing out an interview with Tim Walz after Biden dropped out. And he was really straightforward with Fox News, apparently. I haven't seen this interview, but Tim Walz is just great. He
Yeah,
just doesn't.
he's perfect. And he's got MAGA files in his own extended family. He knows how they
Yes.
think and work. But his personal record is
Mhm.
remarkable. Do you remember at the conference where a lot of his ex-students stood up and spoke and said, he changed how I think about everything,
Right.
that.
Right.
We've got a couple of results. Trump has
Mhm.
taken Kentucky. However, Harris has taken Vermont. So there's two early results, one all.
Right. Right.
I don't
And
know what their electoral poll numbers are. Does anyone know how many Kentucky has and how many Vermont have?
I do not know. Neither of those are surprising me at all.
No.
They're pretty much given in the bag. They're not necessarily part of the equation. I think that the real equation might include new states that we didn't think. I mean, Idaho, who would have imagined? But the polls that predicted a win for Harris are really good polls. This is a pollster who's been consistently right over the past many years. I think she was wrong once, but she's kind of A+ rated, and it's shocking. And if Iowa is that shocking, what does it tell you about the rest of the country?
Exactly. And Colleen has a comment about that. She says, don't get fooled by red mirage, because this happened last time when we were doing this. Don't get fooled by red mirage. Robert Reich has a great explainer video of how that works, the way the early numbers tend to skew red.
Yeah, that's true. And Sharon has pointed out, Sharon, you must live in Kentucky because you know these answers. I'm just guessing, Sharon, but it looks like 11 for Kentucky and 3 for Vermont. Vermont's a teeny weeny little state, right? With a lot of snow, a lot of maple syrup. It's just a few votes, but I
So
think
it's a little liberal in that sense.
yeah.
Kamala's middle name is Devi, Devi, which means goddess.
Yeah,
Can
it
someone
does.
tell us how it's pronounced? Is it Devi or Devi?
I think
Australian
Devi.
accents butcher everything.
I know. Well, so do American
You would have
accents.
noticed that, Dave. Now you've been here a few years.
Yeah,
Australians are such
yeah.
lazy talkers. Americans are very precise, like Australians.
Well,
Whatever.
keep in mind, I was an English teacher for foreigners for many years, so I am more precise because I've taken all my California slang out. I don't say like, and I'm all in every sentence. That was an effort. My first day
Yeah.
teaching, students were like, "Oh my God, who is this crazy person?" But in Australia, it's more about your idioms, your hilariously funny idioms, which
Yeah,
just
that's true.
where did that come from? Buckley's chants. That was one that really got me.
Oh, he's got Buckley's, meaning he's got no chance.
Yes, because there's a fellow
Yeah.
named Buckley who had no chance. Flat out like
Yeah.
a lizard drinking.
Yeah.
One of my absolute favorites. You know what it means? People, it means you're busy.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
only in Australia would a lizard be like, here's some water, gotta drink quick before the predators come and leave.
Look, exactly. So if you're really busy and someone says to you, "Oh, how's it going?" You go, "Oh, I'm flat out like a lizard drinking." It's so bizarre.
It's really, it's really adorable. There's a Y on everything. So there's, if you're an electrician, you're a Sparky. And if you're work with wood, you're a Chippy. So there's a lot of.
That's right.
It's kind of like kid talk,
and nicknames. So Warren becomes Wazza, Sharon becomes Shazza. Why? I don't know, but it's just an Australian thing.
I have been called Davo.
Oh, you get a lot of those, Davo. Yeah, totally. Well, you just whack an O on the end and hopefully.
So Debbie is pronounced like in Debbie, right? So it is Debbie. Yeah, and I have heard that it means goddess. I didn't know that was her middle name.
Yeah, God, she's got the right name for the job.
Yeah, good. So let's see. Any more results? Anyone?
Not yet. Yeah, don't trust the numbers till they're done counting. Exactly.
Yeah, it's true, because last time around, they really set it up so that it was made to look like Trump was winning when we went to bed. I think that they have, they've amended some of these, but not all. The Supreme Court even got involved in suppressing some votes at the last minute. Even though it was contrary
they'll try everything.
There is no limit.
Don't worry, guys. We're not leaving you in the lurch. There'll be, I'm sure, again, speaking for the collective, there's so much between now and January 20th, etc. There'll be lots more to cover. So we'll stay bonded with you guys. There's a message from Rose Blue here. Kamala's mom, the village in India where she originally comes from, have been praying for 15 hours. Bless.
Yeah. So Kamala, okay, and I have been guilty of mispronouncing that name before, but people are very insistent that you pronounce it properly, and I see why. This was another, going back to Newt Gingrich, where he did this. He and the tribe did this routine where they would start saying Democrat instead of Democratic, right?
Yeah.
Democratic is an adjective, democratic person, but they will insist on saying Democrat, just like that kid at school who pinches you and hides behind the teacher. It's like, you're going to argue about it? You're going to make a big deal out of it? It's a way of putting in a little jibe that's irritating, like a sort of mini bully kind of irritation, to make you argue about something and distract you from the topic. And you either leave it live or you argue about it. It's really unfortunate that our politics has been thus debased, although people could argue that was.
There's a comment here, Truth Lover in Georgia, bless you, Dale. She's saying there's a lot of distortion here, but the love is phenomenal. And love for Stacey Abrams too. Oh, that's a lovely comment. Thank you.
Stacey's awesome. Yeah, how cool is that she did that? So I think we're going to.
Sorry, Brenda. Brenda is a female journeyman electrician. So she says, I'm a Sparkette. You were talking.
Good for you. Yeah, well.
I'll just tell a quick story. I used to share a house with a woman in London, a Jamaican woman who was the first woman plumber qualified in the UK. It was a big deal. Women didn't go into those trades. So she was famous for like 3 days as the first woman to get this qualification, right? And the interviewers were saying to her, isn't this a dirty job for a woman? And she said, I've got 2 kids. Now I get paid for fishing things out of the toilet.
That's a great anecdote. Yeah.
It's
Well,
good,
and
isn't it?
also, consider being an electrician in Australia. You'll be very well paid. This is another thing that I notice about our culture. People who have those kinds of jobs in Australia are rich. And by that, I mean they make $140,000 a year if they want to, right?
Yeah, most tradies, if they run their business well and do all
Mhm,
that, do very, very well, and
mhm.
often have the beach house and, a bit of a run around and a few things,
Yeah,
for
right.
sure.
When I moved to Australia, I had the same job I had in the US at the same company, exact same position.
Oh,
But
wow.
I was paid twice as much in Australia because they have a
There you
union.
go.
Yep,
And
and that's
my
what.
flip side of that is when I worked in the US, um, I couldn't believe the conditions. I could not actually believe the white collar working traditions. In those days in Australia, you got 6 weeks paid leave. Doesn't matter if you're working for the trains or the post office or thing. You didn't have to be qualified for anything. 6 weeks paid leave. Went to the States and you had to hang around for 5 years or something to get a paid week off. I couldn't believe it.
Astonishing. Yeah, it's astonishing, right? In Australia, I don't get well, I didn't get emails over the weekend from my employer. In the
No,
US,
mind
there
you,
was
it
no
might be different in today's world, but
yeah,
historically, no.
yeah. Well, no, people don't really answer their emails for work over the weekend in Australia. So any more results before we go? It looks like we're just about to pass the torch to Jen Lynn's channel. Anybody else
Yes.
want to report any results before we go?
Michigan goes blue. Oh my
Yes, let's hope,
God.
Sally, from your lips to Spirit's ear, that this is going to happen. Um, yeah, I'm not sure we're going to get too many results in the next few minutes. That might be a gig for others this evening, but I'll be watching and I'll be meditating on a better universe. That is something that you can do now, and I find that it helps to calm my nerves a bit if I just go, "Okay, Spirit, I'm trusting you. I'm trusting you.
Yeah.
Bring in the light. Bring in the light." That does feel
Well,
good.
I have got to go and have breakfast now, and I need to have breakfast and something to eat in case I need a wine for lunchtime.
Well, I say go for the wine regardless.
Not sure it's such a good idea. So thank you for tuning in, guys.
Thanks, everyone.
Wow.
Yeah,
Thanks.
it's been wonderful to see you guys, and thanks for all the support and love. I'm gonna keep putting that out there, and I know that you will too. We'll all see you soon.
See you soon, Jen Lynn's Tarot. See
Yeah,
ya.
don't miss it. Bye bye, everyone.
Bye.